I am a commercial airline pilot. Ask me anything.
Which commercial planes do you think is the best/worst designed from a pilot's perspective? Are there any military or special use craft that you think would convert well to commercial use? Answer. Man, that's not an easy one to answer. I don't even know where to start on this one really. I haven't flown enough different airliners to have a truly informed answer, but Boeing refusing to update the cockpit of the 737 due to type rating issues hasn't ever sat well with me personally. Not that that particularly matters for anything, and I'm sure there are thousands of 737 pilots who would tell me to shut the F***ck up, it's fine how it is. The cockpit, of the Airbus line is so much better from a pilot perspective. It's all sleek, and push-button with actual space to move around, while the 737 cockpit is a direct rip from the even older 727 and is roughly the same size as my CRJ regional jet cockpit. Airplane generally flies just fine when there are competently trained pilots at the controls, but that's the best answer I can give you there. The only military craft I could see having a viable civilian market, that doesn't already have a civilian market like the CH-47, would be the V-22 Osprey. The rest more prioritize power and performance, rightfully so, over efficiency, so making money with them becomes significantly harder. Companies like money. So, yeah. How much of a flight is automated and how much of it is actually you piloting? Answer. It depends on the day and the person flying. I generally prefer to hand fly the airplane up to about 10 to 15,000 feet before engaging the autopilot. Then you turn it off when you're landing. So on a day when it's nice and you feel like flying, figure 30 to 40% of the flight is hand flown, the rest is autopilot. Some days you don't feel like working as much and turn it on earlier and off later, but it's always off for takeoff and landing. Other people turn the autopilot on when you're 600 above the ground, our company's standard minimum AP engagement altitude, then snap it off when we're 200 above the ground, so they fly on autopilot for 95% of the flight. Do you let young kids take pictures with you in the cockpit? Answer. Absolutely. We all remember when we were those kids. You'd be hard-pressed to find the grumpy, crusty pilot who's gonna pass up the chance to share our love of aviation with a kid and maybe create a life-changing memory. We can't have people in the cockpit anymore during flight, thanks 9/11, but talk to the flight attendants about it during initial boarding, or talk to them in flight about doing it after everyone else gets off. What effect does it really have if I don't put my device in airplane mode? Answer. It can cause interference with our radios, both audio and navigational. On rare occasions we'll have a lot of static on the radio, we'll stop and make the announcement to remind everyone their phone needs to be in airplane mode, and that if that doesn't solve the problem we'll have to return to the gate for maintenance. Really quick the interference goes away. Go figure. You want your phone in airplane mode too. Once we climb above 5,000 feet your phone isn't gonna pick up any cell signal anyway, so it's just gonna spend the rest of the flight draining your battery searching for cell service. What's the nicest airplane you had the pleasure flying? Answer. A-64D Apache Longboat. She's a bit of a maintenance queen, but goddamn if she wasn't a fun bird to fly around in. In all honesty, the CRJ 700 is a pretty nice, pilot-friendly airliner too. Been a long time since I flew a meh airplane. She's a bit of a maintenance queen, but that's not really my problem, that's the enlisted guy's problem. Answer. Accurate. Thank you. Haha. And sometimes it was my problem, like, God damn it Sergeant, why isn't that fixed, you said it was gonna be. I wanted to go fly. Now I've gotta go pretend to do work for a few more hours. Haha. Are all pilots required to wear aviators? Answer. Yes. It's hidden deep within Federal Aviation Regulations 14 CFR 121.682, and all pilots are briefed on it when they're in their new hire initial training. Do you really have to eat a different meal than the co-pilot? Answer. Haha, I'm lucky if I get any food in flight to begin with, let alone worrying if it's different than what the other pilot is eating. I currently do not do the super long-haul cross-planet flights that entitle me to crew meals, so I can't personally comment on whether that's true or not. I think it's up to each company's individual policy. Do you have a favorite airport? Answer. Chicago O'Hare. 1. Because that's home and there's always the hope that the trip is over and my weekend is about to start. 2. Because they're really structured and predictable. You know what runway you're going to land on and what flight instructions you're going to get 10 minutes before they announce them to you, which really assists in planning and makes for a more relaxed flight. Do you know what all the buttons do? Have you pressed them all even once? Answer. A. Yes, and if I forget they're all labeled so. Hooray, Cliff Notes. B. No, there are several that never get pressed. In fact, my company even has one button, the high power schedule button, that kicks the engines up to their maximum possible thrust rating that we refer to as the get fired button. Usually the ones that don't get pressed are for emergency use only. Fortunately, there are very few real-life emergencies. High power schedule. Maximum thrust is only possible using this button? Answer. No, it's possible through other means, like advancing the thrust levers far enough. The button was explained to me as being more of a maintenance function than a flight function and can put undue stress on the engines, which are leased, not owned, so that's why it's the get fired button. Do they give you, ladies and gentlemen, this is your, captain speaking PA lessons? Answer. Well, you have to pick your spots, so that everyone knows you're still speaking while you look for more pointless information to tell everyone, like the wind speed and direction at the destination. I fly on mostly Airbus planes and generally sit towards the front. As we are on final approach, maybe 2,000 to 3,000 feet up, I always hear a warning bell of some sort from the cockpit. What is that signifying? Answer. You're probably closer to the ground than you think, and in reality probably only 1,000 to a few hundred feet above the ground. My guess would be that's the autopilot disconnect alert, and you're hearing the audio warning associated with the pilots taking manual control of the airplane for landing. Can't say with 100% certainty, but that would be my best guess. Speaking of autopilot, do you foresee Boeing ever perfecting the 737 MAX planes because of the MCAS incidents, or just scrapping the idea of it, and would you fly one if they came back into service? Also, do you think that Steve Dixon from the FAA is crazy stating that he would fly on the test flight of the 737 MAX with his wife and children before he certifies the planes to be back in the air? Answer. They'll fix it eventually. And then if they have an ounce of intelligence in their corporate planning office, they'll put a 737 replacement plan into overdrive, if it's not already there. And no. Most people are much more willing to take risks with their own lives than with the people they care about. What's the strangest interaction you've had with a passenger on a flight? Answer. I really wish I had a classic witty story here to wow everyone, but I really don't. As a pilot, I don't often have a lot of passenger interaction other than saying have a nice day as they get off my airplane. I suppose my weirdest interaction came after a flight from Hayden Co to Denver. Single runway airport, and it was snowing, so after everyone was aboard we told them we'd have to de-ice. The Hayden de-ice crew was efficient and had the whole plane sprayed off and complete in less than 5 minutes. Then we taxied to the runway and waited maybe 5 more minutes for a landing aircraft to clear the runway before we took off. Normal 20-minute flight into Denver, got to the gate quickly, and everyone was getting off. I was saying goodbye to everyone, and this 40-ish looking lady was coming towards the front with an expression on her face that normally leads to a "oh thank you so much for a nice flight" type comment. Instead, when she gets to me, she leans in and literally snarls at me, "You should do a better job telling us what's going on," and stomps off the plane. Given that we did tell everyone what was happening during the ice and we got them to the gate right on time, I was too stunned and confused to even respond with anything other than Clearly I'm witty, right? And then she disappeared up the jet bridge. Not an all-time story by any means, but currently it's the best I have. Hope that works for you. More nervous taking off or landing typically? Answer: nervous on neither really. Landings are the more stressful, I suppose, if you force me to choose one. Takeoffs are pretty uneventful, you push the thrust levers forward and hope nothing breaks. Landings are the most fun part of the trip. It's the chance to hand fly the plane like I've done my whole career prior to the airlines. I always take it as a personal challenge to try to get the smoothest landing possible. I don't necessarily always succeed, but I like to think even my personal bad landings are no worse than average. That said, sometimes the weather around the airport can get a little dicey and you're jockeying the power levers and trying to stay on the glide path through bumpy and gusty crosswinds that are trying to push you off the runway alignment. I personally refer to those as rodeo a proa. CHES because you've gotta tame the bucking airplane the whole way down.